There may be 7 weeks until the US presidential election, but polls are already open in 3 states. Voters have been getting in early in Virginia, South Dakota and Minnesota, the home state of Democratic Vice President nominee Tim Walz. His running mate, Kamala Harris, has edged ahead of Republican nominee Donald Trump in the national polls. But as Tom Cheshire explains, that doesn't necessarily secure a path to the White House.
We're going to talk about the big and the small because the US is a giant country, but this is an election that will be decided in local places with local issues. So let's start with the big. The Sky poll tracker, this is showing across the nation the average of the most recent polls, who is leading. And if you're in the Harris camp, you'll be happy with this. She's maintaining but also slightly extending this lead. She's now looking like she's going to be +3 up. Now, again, that is across the country. What she needs to do is take that +3 and translate it in this race to 270 Electoral College votes. Again, look, big country, but we're concerned with these local places, these swing states. And they break down into 3 areas. You've got the southeast here. You think agricultural, sort of the swampy south. Then you've got the northeast, the Rust Belt, former industrial towns, and another place entirely the southwest, these 2 states, where you think, like, well, immigration might be a concern there. This is sort of desert. It's the bright lights of Las Vegas. These are very, very different locations. So if you're the candidates here, you might be thinking, I've got all these different sets of voters. How am I going to appeal to them? They've got different concerns. Well, actually, there is polling on this in these swing states, and we can tell you, actually, they sort of care about the same things. These are the voters in the swing states rating the policy areas they care about the most, and economy is #1. Perhaps not surprising after a period of high inflation, but then you've got immigration, democracy, that is sort of threats to democracy, the dangers of polarisation and crime down there. So they more or less agree on what is most important. There might be different flavours to that. The economy looks different in these places, but these are the top concerns. And which candidates do they trust to do best on these? Well, if the bar is in red, they trust Donald Trump. If it's in blue, they trust Kamala Harris. And you can see Donald Trump has that lead on the economy. It's not as big as some might think, and Kamala Harris seems to be catching a little bit on there, but there's big lead for Donald Trump on immigration. Threats to democracy, actually, both candidates are tied there. When it comes to crime, Kamala Harris has that big lead. So they had that big number. These are the sort of smaller, more local numbers. And if you're Donald Trump, you'll be looking at this feeling pretty happy about it. But let's go back to another big number. Favorability, basically, which candidate do people prefer? Do they find them favourable or unfavourable? Again, we're looking at this gap again, and it's a big gap, a big lead for Kamala Harris. So again, her camp will be looking at that. But then you've got to balance that with the swing states, whether they think that is going to translate into those swing states. And that really is the crux of this election. It's the big and the small. How they interact is going to decide who wins the presidency.
Well, joining me live is political analyst Siracusa, Professor of Global Futures at Curtin University. Great to see you. Yes, plenty of numbers there, the polls. What do you make of them? Is it too early to call?
Well, not really. I mean, after 2016, Janie, I kind of went off the polls for a while. They were all wrong. And they got a little better in 2020. And, you know, the polls only indicate certain things at certain times. I mean, your little package there is very important because while people seem to like Kamala Harris, they seem to trust Donald Trump with the economy. And we're here talking about inflation, interest rates, and that kind of thing. And they trust him with the borders, the immigration. And I think they actually trust him with law and order, despite what the thing says there. So on the important issues in the battleground, so-called battleground states, look, every state's a battleground if you want to get the votes up. I think your audience has to remember that no matter how popular a candidate is, the important thing is getting to 270 electoral votes. Seems like the founding fathers weren't all that excited about democracy. They wanted to make sure there was a buffer there. And that buffer is the Electoral College. And I think Trump has a little easier road to the Electoral College. And it's for this reason. I think we don't know much about Kamala Harris. In fact, we know as much about her today as we did 2 months ago. Her speech to the Democratic National Convention and her debate speech or debate comments were the same piece of paper. You know, she read the same lines over and over again about the opportunity economy, which of course means nothing. And she's going to have tax credits for people who want to buy their first house and have a kid. Well, not all Americans are interested in that kind of thing. So, she may be very likable, but at the end of the day, we all like Santa Claus, but no one wants to see him in charge of our Qantas flight anywhere because he's just not reliable.
Well, you said that you want to know more about her. If you had, something to say to her, what question would you want to know? What would you ask her?
What I want to know about Kamala Harris. This sort of foreshadows Australian Prime Minister's visit right now to Wilmington. When did she know that that President Biden was incapable of being commander-in-chief and chief? When did she know that he was cognitively impaired? When did she know that he was, literally not in charge of anything? And then why did she keep it a secret for so long? There is a cabal of people, and it's not, not sinister, but there's a cabal of people who run the president in the White House, and they kept him under wraps as long as possible. When he had that one debate with President Trump, which I saw in Washington, was just it was a debacle. You couldn't hide it anymore. President Biden had simply, he timed out. There's nothing left. So what I want to know is, how long did Harris know this, and did she take a lead role with the group of people who run the president? Now, it's quite clear the leadership of the Democratic Party. And here we're talking about the Obamas, and we're talking about the Clintons, and we're talking about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all these people. They drove Biden from the White House because they were afraid they were going to lose the House and the Senate because he couldn't stay on message. He couldn't be trusted. And as you recall, in 2020, he had the cover of COVID to run the campaign from the basement of his home. So, they didn't have to run any risks. But look, President Biden had a wonderful career. He just grew old in office. He wasn't able to do it anymore. And Kamala Harris became the most logical choice. Now, she has not won a single damn primary vote. She went to that Democratic convention on the wings of all the support that Joe Biden had. As you recall, a couple weeks ago, Janie, Biden was saying that only, the Lord Almighty could stop him from running for president. Well, apparently the Lord Almighty gave him a call or two and visited him, and he folded because the Democratic leadership wouldn't support him anymore. And they made it very clear to him. He can go easily or he can go a hard way. So they told Americans this story that he very bravely and honorably left the White House to clear the road for Kamala Harris. Well, actually, he got pushed. And Kamala Harris knows that he got pushed. And they're making, the people who pushed President Biden are making very sure that Kamala Harris does not embarrass them. Now, look, she's an intelligent woman. She is a prosecutor. She's not a businesswoman. She's not a real politician in the sense of, she deals well with the corporate world. I mean, she's used to putting some bad guys behind bars and getting elected in California. But California politics, Janie, they ain't American politics. America's not California. America is something else. It's a very different kind of a place. So look, I think it's maybe too close to call, but in terms of the quickest road to the electoral victory, 270 votes, I think Donald Trump has a little lead on Kamala Harris, and then for this reason, in states like Michigan, the Muslims and the Arab voters and the Palestinian voters are going to make her pay a heavy price for not condemning Israeli excesses in Gaza. And they've made it very clear. Thousands and thousands of them have come out over and over again saying that they're not going to forgive the Democratic Party. Now, I have no idea what the Republican Party intends to do, but they're going to hold her accountable. And they were going to hold Joe Biden accountable. And so there's a lot of people, a lot of normal constituents in the Democratic Party who just aren't going to put up with it. Their interests have not been served. The Democrats, the White House has not made the slightest interest to ameliorate their concerns. And so I think they're going to punish the leadership of the Democratic Party. And look, it wouldn't hurt the Democrats to sit in the wilderness for a little while and figure out what they did wrong. But I'll tell you what, they have been trying very hard to keep Donald Trump out of office. I mean, they weaponized the justice system, got him up on 2 phony impeachment votes. They threw the FBI at him and the Department of Justice.
Yeah.
I mean, they've thrown the kitchen sink at Donald Trump. And you know what? He's still walking. That includes 2 assassination attempts. So Donald Trump looks like he might be the last man standing.
Yep, we're getting the wrap up, Joe. We've got to end it there, but 7 weeks to go? We'll know very soon. Thank you so much. Always great to see you.
Okay.
Take care.